Well, hello friend, and welcome back to the Alex Makes VR podcast. In today's episode, I want to talk about why you are struggling to get your creative work noticed. It's a real problem, right? We spend hours on creative projects. We pour our blood, sweat and tears. We pour nothing but our heart, soul, the very essence of who we are into our creative original work. And then it doesn't get noticed. It doesn't get the reception that we're hoping for. Why is that? I'm going to talk about that in today's episode. But before I dive into that, I am setting myself a little challenge, and I would encourage you, if you fancy it, to join in. For the next 10 days, I'm going to be posting a daily podcast, a really short and sweet daily podcast. That's something for me. I had the most fun podcasting, and don't get me wrong, I have fun every week, but I had the most fun when I first started. I was doing a daily podcast challenge. I loved it. What that did for me was that kickstarted that momentum. It kickstarted that productivity boost. It kickstarted that passion for this thing that I was quite scared of doing, and I didn't know how to do it, and I didn't know whether it was going to, maybe I should make it perfect. Does it need editing? Do I need to write notes before I start recording? It allowed me to get over all of that perfectionism, all of those roadblocks that I was going to put in the way of myself, and just start doing it. And the truth was, the only result that I wanted was to have posted a daily podcast. I had no expectations of what the content was or what the quality was going to be. I just wanted to do something every day that moved me closer to being the kind of person I wanted to be, which was the kind of person that could show up every day and do something creative, to create something. So I'm going to bring that back. Whether you celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah or any of the celebrations that go on during December, or whether you don't, this could just be a 10-day challenge for you to join in with and really see out 2020 in style. Now, don't get me wrong. I know some of you are going to be listening to this and be like, Alex, it's been a bit of a shit show of a year. Why now do I have to spend my time, which is usually spent winding down and chilling a bit more and drinking a little bit more and eating a little bit more and seeing my friends a little bit more? Why do I have to spend this time doing a challenge? Isn't that what January 1st is for? My answer to that is, yeah, of course. You could absolutely spend the rest of December being a bit more chill, being a bit more low-key, letting those habits slip a little bit. Or you could say, do you know what? I'm not going to wait until January 1st. I'm not going to wait until a new year to feel proud of myself for doing something. And this challenge doesn't have to be big. It can be small, 2 to 5 minutes a day. And if you are the kind of person that's actually been going at it all year, you've had a chaotic, crazy year. You've had to homeschool the kids, and you've had to, you've changed job, you've been made redundant, so you've been having to get out there and push yourself. You've been trying to keep things afloat. You deserve to relax this December. Maybe your challenge is every single day doing something for 5 minutes that you really want to do, something that is just for you, not for anyone else. Maybe it's 5 minutes of mindfulness meditation, or maybe it's 5 minutes of walking and listen to that audiobook that you really wanted to listen to. Whatever it might be. It could also be similar to mine, more of a creative challenge. 5 minutes writing that script, 5 minutes opening Unity to learn the interface, 5 minutes to podcast, 5 minute rant on video to upload to YouTube. Whatever it is that you've been putting off, the thing that you would like to do to see this new year out, this year out, so that you can go into the new year and think, do you know what? I've already started. I'm proud of myself because I've already started. I've not waited until January. I've started now and I feel good for it. So if you want to join in, I would absolutely love that. And I would love to hear what challenge you're giving yourself. You can reach out to me on Instagram or Twitter. It's Alex Makes VR. And alongside this challenge, of course, there will be the usual podcasts on a Monday. If you want to be notified when those episodes go live and you want the best tips and tricks from each episode delivered straight to your inbox, then please consider signing up to the newsletter. It's alexmakesvr.com. Okay, I've rambled enough. This is just the intro and we're already at 5 minutes. Oh, it's going to be a long one, guys. let's jump in to why you are struggling to get your creative work seen. Over the last couple of weeks, I have had several messages across platforms from various creators that have been in the VR industry just as long as I have, if not longer, double the time that I've been in the industry. And it was quite upsetting, really, to read these messages because they were messages that were born out of frustration. They were messages that were saying, I'm really trying here and I've been trying for years and yet I still don't seem to get noticed. I don't get recognised for the work I'm doing. I am, I'm keeping up with innovations. I'm pushing the boundaries just as much as any of these big projects that are getting kind of publicity, but I'm not being recognised for that. And the answer that I've always gone back to these people with, and the topic of this podcast episode, like the reason why you're struggling to get your work noticed, the reason why you're struggling to be recognised for your work, it's going to be a little bit of an uncomfortable truth, but this lie that we've been peddled about, if you do good work, then you will win one day. It's a complete fallacy. It's a complete lie. And that is probably really hard to hear as a creator. But in my opinion, it's one of the biggest missteps of the creative world is that we tell creatives from the start, hey, this, it's simple as this. You put in the work, you do good work, you get better at your craft, and you will be rewarded for that. It's just not true. Maybe it was back in the day, but not now. Not in the age of the internet. Because what the internet and big tech has done is it's given everyone a chance. It's given everyone a voice. And that in itself is a beautiful thing. Back in the day, a little girl from Leicester in the middle of nowhere in England, I wouldn't have been able to access the kind of filmmaking equipment that would have allowed me to get to where I am in my career. I wouldn't have even been allowed near the equipment. I wouldn't have known any people that would have even had access to that equipment, let alone the fact that back in the day, not to get into gender politics, but I'm a woman, so I probably wouldn't have been allowed or taken seriously in that profession just for the fact that I was a woman. But now we have the internet and we have smartphones that have cameras that are so good that real established, Oscar award winning filmmakers are making projects with the cameras on these phones. Now all of a sudden I have an entire Hollywood film studio in my pocket. Well, actually currently right in front of my face because that's how I'm recording this podcast. But even that in itself, right? Like back in the day, radio. How would you be a radio presenter? What would that look like? What luck and nepotism and right place, right time and how many years of training to be allowed to use the multi-million-pound equipment that would have been used to broadcast a radio show. And now I can whip out my iPhone, talk into it, and within minutes, it could be uploaded and pushed out across all the major podcast platforms for you to be listened to it. Technology is absolutely incredible because it has given everyone a chance. So now it's not only the most privileged and the people with the most access and the most money that get to have a go at being a creative professionally, especially professions like I'm imagining most of you listening have, which involves equipment, and it's a slightly higher barrier to entry than, let's say, something like writing, where all you need is, well, realistically, a pad and a pen or a pencil, or painting, where you need some paints and a canvas. It's, we still have quite a high barrier to entry when we're working in a very technical field like filmmaking or, audio engineering or immersive creating. I've lost my trail of thought. Hang on, wait. You thought that was going somewhere, didn't you? Hang on, let me backpedal. So whilst we have all this opportunity, whilst it's actually a privilege, the fact that any of us can have a go at making our creative work our job. At the same time, it means that whereas before you'd be competing with maybe 100 people, now you're competing with the entire world. And the distribution channels are so established, not for VR, but for mainstream kind of creativity, whether it's music or filmmaking or photographs or writing. You can literally upload something to the internet and it can potentially be accessed by the world. Anyone that has access to the internet could theoretically find and view your work within a matter of moments. And that is wild. But what that also brings with it is massive, massive competition. So why are you struggling to get your work seen or noticed? Well, number one, because there is more work than ever being created. But number two, and this is another hard truth, and I don't mean this to be a negative Nancy episode, but I just feel like this is something that I wish someone had told me when I first started in this industry. The skill to create a project and create creative work is not the same skill as getting your creative work noticed. That is two very, very different skill sets. In order to get your work noticed, you need to be good at marketing and networking and selling and press and knowing how to engage with publicists or PR people, knowing how to make your creative work appealing to outlets to pick up and amplify across their channels, knowing how to tap into influencer networks. It's not the same skill as being able to create a beautifully shot short film or create a stunning, interactive, engaging VR game. It's not the same skill set. And the truth is, if you want to get your work noticed, you're going to have to spend more of your time marketing your work than probably actually making it. Now, of course, you could work with a teammate that does that for you. You could partner up with someone who is a marketer, someone who has that skill set. I think to some extent, I think the reason that people ask me this question is because they see that I've done a vaguely good job at getting my work noticed. That's because I'm a really good marketer. And actually, I would say that I'm probably a better marketer than I am a purebred creative. I think you've got to have both, of course. But the truth is that if I wasn't very good at marketing and I wasn't interested in the psychology of social media strategy or whatever it might be, then maybe my work wouldn't have been seen or been noticed by the people that I wanted to notice it. And so that's something you have to really think about. And my answer to some of these people that were reaching out to me over email about this topic, my answer to them was really quite bleak in terms of, the truth is, if you want to get noticed, if you want, the opportunity to speak on panels about your work, if you want to be invited to do keynotes at events, if you want to be invited to write guest blogs, if you want to be featured on, people's channels or whatever it might be, if you want to even if you want to get your work into big film festivals, the truth is that you probably need to spend less time creating and more time getting your work noticed, that more time crafting a network, more time understanding audiences, understanding who the curators are, understanding the psychology of getting your creative work out there. And for most people, that is going to sound horrific. And I totally get that. I totally appreciate that the majority of the people, of you guys listening to this, you don't want to be doing that. Like, you got into this so that you could create. You got into this because you're passionate about creating, about making that work, about saying something with your art. And here I am telling you, like, oh, sorry guys, the truth is, like, if you want to get it noticed a bit more, you're going to have to get a bit better at, marketing it than actually doing it. That sucks. And I hate that that is the reality. And anyone that says that that isn't the reality is lying to you. And I wish it wasn't. I wish it was a case of, like, the best work always, the cream rises to the top. And if you put in your hours and if you put in your work, one day you will get noticed. But that's just not true. The truth is, if you are the kind of person that just happens to be putting in the work and then you all of a sudden get picked up and amplified, your voice gets amplified, your work gets amplified, it's because the person who noticed your work was good at that other skill set, or the person that came across your work happened upon you by luck, by chance, and they had the right network or skill set or money or channels or influence to amplify your work. But do you want to wait for luck? That's the question. Do you want to wait for that happenstance? Do you want to wait for that chance encounter? You hear, and this is part of the problem, I think, is like that we hear about these chance discovery stories, like Justin Bieber discovered on YouTube by Usher, and what's her last name? Rachel, I'm blanking on her last name, but the creator of the Crazy Ex-Girlfriend TV show, discovered on YouTube by Aileen Brosh McKenna, who's a massive, big-time executive producer and showrunner in Hollywood, and that's how she got her start. Of course, we romanticize these chance encounters. We romanticize the very, very 1%, these rare occasions where people do get discovered by chance. But the truth is if you want to give yourself more than just a little chance, if you want to give yourself a real shot at having your work do the things that you want it to do, you do need to really consider your marketing plan, your distribution plan. You need to build your network with the right kind of people that you want to get your creative work to way before you even start making your creative work. And that sucks, doesn't it? Because now it's adding this whole nother layer. It's impossible as it is to make a good piece of creative work on the budgets that you're working on, let alone now dedicate this more time and energy to this other thing. And so that's the truth. You might have to spend a bit less time creating and a bit more time on that plan, if that's something that you want. But the key thing here is to, again, this comes back to something that I talk about in so many other episodes, which is reverse engineering your own success. What do you want to happen? Why is it important that people see your work? Who are the people that you want to notice your work? Because when I speak to artists that just have this pie-in-the-sky idea of like, oh, I want to win an Oscar. And don't get me wrong, I've been that person in the past. But, okay, well, what does that actually look like then? Well, firstly, why do you want to win an Oscar? Is it just so that you can feel like, I don't know, is it some arbitrary award kind of achievement thing that makes you feel better than everyone else? Or is it this proof that like you are really good at the thing that you are passionate about? Like, is it so that you can feel validated by your parents because you said that I couldn't pursue this and look at me now on the biggest stage for filmmaking? Like, take that, mum. Is that why? And if that is why, like maybe even understanding why you're doing it will in itself like cure you of why you're pursuing that. So first of all, reverse engineer what you want to happen and who you want to see your work. Interesting side story on the Oscar situation. A friend of mine actually had a documentary that was in the running to make the shortlist for the Oscars. And they kind of were telling me the hilarious ins and outs and the nepotism and the lobbying that goes into actually getting considered for an Oscar. And they were telling me how they had to spend double the budget of their film on the lobbying process to get Academy members to vote for them to be on the shortlist. So even like an award like that, which most filmmakers would be like, oh, I can imagine myself, one day like holding, thanking my mum and dad at the Oscars. Hilariously, again, in our minds, we're like, yeah, that's the pinnacle of filmmaking. That's what happens when you work really hard at your craft and you're the best of the best and you rise to the top, after years. But the truth is, oh, no, it's not. It's that you've got a really good publicist and lobbying team that gets your film and your work in front of the right people, aka Academy members. You've got the right network. You've got the right amount of money and publishing and angle. And obviously there has to be like, your work has to be good. You're not just going to get into the Oscars if it's crap. But at the same time, there's this whole other side to it that we don't see as creators. We don't get told that side of the story, that actually it's as much a marketing and publicist and lobbying effort and like trying to get people on board to vote. It's basically like politics. It's shady. It's really shady. So reverse engineer what you want to happen. And then, like, for example, in that situation, not that I would encourage you to pursue that, but if you were going to pursue that kind of goal, well, then you need to be building towards creating something that gets the attention of a big film funder, or if obviously I'm using filmmaking because that is my kind of territory, but whatever discipline you're in, going after the big funders who would kind of, or the attention of a big distributor, or the attention of, someone big in the independent film world, who would have the right connections, which would then allow you to access the kind of money and the kind of network you would need to create a piece and get it in front of those kind of members to even be in with a chance of being considered for something like that. Do you see what I mean? So we all know what kind of films get nominated for Oscars. Like, you can watch a film and go, oh yeah, that's Oscar bait right there. And there's a reason for that, right? So it's not like you're going to go in there with your rom-com expecting to win an Oscar. So reverse engineer who you're going after. Reverse engineer what you want to happen with your work. When it comes to VR and immersive work, of course, that adds this extra layer of complications, because VR work in itself is quite difficult to get out into the world. So maybe, a bit like what I've done in the last few years, maybe your target audience primarily is the VR industry itself, because those are the people that have access to VR. They're the people that will spread the word through word of mouth. That is the network that you want to cultivate. And then off the back of that, because you have that network, because you have that kind of slight prestige within an industry, you can then use that to leverage getting funding for projects. You can use that to create your own pop-up cinemas, because you've got that laurel on your film poster that allows you to access a kind of audience that would want to come and see a project that has been shown at a film festival. Do you see what I mean? Do you see what I'm getting at here? Or do you just want as many eyeballs on your project as possible? In which case, you've created a piece of work. Who is the primary audience? Who is the target audience? Okay, my film, well, it's a generic kind of love story, but one of the main characters is vegan. Okay, so maybe I can go and tap into the vegan communities. Maybe I can go and become a part of it, because actually that's what I'm passionate about anyway. So, okay, I'm going to go hang out in these Facebook groups. I'm going to go and see who are the big YouTuber influencers in that space. I'm going to try and tap into all of these opportunities to become part of those communities, so that when I do release my film, I can go straight to this community that I know will be interested in it because it has a character that represents them, maybe. Or maybe, oh, okay, my film is very similar to, let's say, a Robert Rodriguez film. Okay, so now I'm going to go find, where are the Robert Rodriguez fans hanging out? Like, people that watch his films, what other films do they kind of watch? Where, what are they the kind of people that would spend time, consuming content on YouTube? Or are they more Vimeo kind of crowd? Are they more like, are they going to be on LinkedIn? Like, what kind of jobs might they have? Like, think about where your audience is hanging out. Think about where you're going to get in front of people. Because, say for example, you create a piece of work for, I don't know, teenage girls, but you end up posting it on YouTube and on Twitter and on LinkedIn, because that's where your networks are, and it only ends up getting seen by, I don't know, 30 to 50-year-old parents, because that's who is in your network. Then obviously that is an example of, like, of course your piece isn't going to get seen by your target audience, because that target audience isn't in your network. So really you need to be posting it on TikTok. Really, you need to be tapping into, networks where you can, get your film seen by the right. Do you see what I mean? I feel like I'm kind of going around the house a little bit here, but hopefully you're getting at, you understand what I'm getting at, which is that, number one, realize that the reason you're struggling to get your creative work noticed is because getting your work noticed is a job in itself. So you either need to spend more time doing that, or you need to hire someone or team up with someone who is good at doing that. There's actually a really interesting principle in advertising called the 80-20 rule, where 20% of the money is spent on creating the advert and 80% of the money is spent amplifying the advert. 20% on creating, 80% amplifying. So, if it costs 20 grand to make the TV advert, 80 grand is being spent on paying for the promotion, on the, getting the TV slot, paying for the Facebook ads, paying for publicity and press. 80%. Now, I'm not suggesting that you need to spend 80% of your time amplifying your work, but maybe more like 50-50 at least. So number one, you need to spend more time on marketing, on that other skill set, which is getting your work noticed, getting the right network. And number two, reverse engineer what you want to happen with your creative work. Who is your audience and where are they hanging out? And start to build that and start to kind of like target those places before you release the work. Or even when you release the work, make sure you go to where your audience are hanging out. There's no point in creating something, shoving it up on YouTube and hoping that someone finds it, especially creative work, because most people that come across work, it's either recommended to them or they've searched for it. Now, the chances are with original work, because there is no necessary value proposition, it's not like it's like, unless you've created some kind of work that's like a how-to, only it's, do you see what I'm getting at? Like people are going to be searching for things like that and they want to come across information-based work. They don't really tend to think about it. It's like with Netflix, right? It's like you've either heard about a movie, you've seen it promoted, or someone's recommended it to you, whether that's the Netflix algorithm or your mate. That's how creative work and original work is consumed. You don't often search for it. I mean, sometimes you'll say, oh, I really fancy watching, a really intense thriller. I don't know. I want to watch a Scandi thriller TV show tonight. What's some good ones? Oh, no one I know has recommended anything. I can't find that as a subcategory on Netflix. Okay, so I'm going to Google it. Good Scandi thriller. So now it's like, who's gonna be suggesting it? Where am I gonna find those suggestions? So it's gonna be people that have done reviews of it, right? It's gonna be like YouTubers who might have done reviews of TV shows, might be like publications online that have put out content about best Scandi thrillers to watch in 2020. Oh, all right, I'll have a look at that. Oh, number one. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'll go check that out on Netflix. I'll give that a go. That's how people consume creative work. It's very rare that someone kind of like something pops up in their YouTube feed and they go, oh yeah, I'll give that a watch, even though I've got no context on this creator. I don't know who they are. I don't know what the film is about. It's very rare that people do that. Does that make sense? I feel like maybe I've just gone on a total rant for 30 minutes, but hopefully there was some good Easter eggs in here. And again, I don't want to sound negative. I don't want to tell you that you shouldn't be creating work, because, you know, there's something beautiful about creating work just for the sake of creating work. But the thing is, we are a social creature. We are creatures, especially artists and creatives, who do seek external approval. We're looking for our communities. We're looking for people to go, yes, I see you. I validate you. I love your work. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate what you're bringing into the world. That's what we're looking for as creatives, isn't it? As much as our therapists might tell us that that's unhealthy. Again, lost my thought trail. So I'm going to stop here. That's probably a good sign that I should wrap this up. So either create work for the sake of creating work and don't worry about getting your work noticed. And maybe one day you'll have that happenstance luck of someone stumbling upon your work that does have the kind of network or marketing prowess to be able to put you in the spotlight. Number 2, I guess, is actually do put in the work to be more of a marketer. Spend 50% of your time, if not more, advertising, building your network, coming up with a strategy on how you're going to get your creative work seen, not just creating it itself. Number 3, reverse engineer what you want to happen and who your audience is, so that when you do your creative work, you can push it straight to them. Don't just release it into the wild without thinking about who you want to see it. Understand your audience that you're trying to go after and go to where they are hanging out. What kind of people are they? What social networks are they using? What groups are they hanging out in? How can you become a part of that community so that when your creative work is ready, you can go straight into that? I hope that helps. Let me know. I would love to hear from you whether this has been interesting and you've picked up on bits and bobs, because I do fear that with a subject like this, it can be a little bit like dream shattering because the truth is, as creatives, we've been sold this lie that if you work hard that you will get the kind of recognition that you deserve, and it's just not true, especially not in the age of the internet. Because I know a lot of extremely talented people that are total shit at marketing, you know, and do not get the kind of recognition they deserve. And how often do we hear that story of like artists that have been grinding for years that should have made it big, but they haven't? It's because they weren't noticed. And the reason they weren't noticed is because they didn't either spend the time on getting noticed, because they didn't understand that in itself was a huge piece of the puzzle, or they never had the happenstance, they never had the luck, they never had the privilege, they never had the access or the money to be in the right place at the right time, to be spotted, to be amplified. I'm getting off my soapbox now. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, I would love to hear from you. And also, please share the episode if you think this would help a creative in your life with these hot takes. Let me know. Please don't troll me. I don't think my vulnerable ego could take that. But I'm always up for a healthy discussion. Like I say, I'm going to be posting daily episodes for the next 10 days. So come back tomorrow on your favourite podcast platform to hear me rant about something else. If you've got a subject or a question for future episodes, obviously you can also reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. Alex Makes VR on Instagram and Twitter. Until tomorrow, my friends, have a great day wherever you are in the world and keep creating.